Dear learners, welcome back to SWAYAM NPTEL course on Library Automation and Networking. This is week number 5, module number 5, lecture number 21, Alerting Services, CAS, SDI and ECS. Dear learners, during last few sessions we were discussing about many aspects of library automation, how do we provide services and what are the different types of activities and services which are happening in libraries. So this we have already discussed in many of the sessions, and in this particular session we will be discussing more about computerized information services. As the name indicates, there is an involvement of computers. When we talk about computers, it can be computer ICTs, networking technologies, information and communication technologies. So all together, what are the services we normally give in a particular library to perform various activities and services? Apart from that, what are the additional services or extra services, or what are the outreaching activities which we perform with the support of a computer assisted technology that we call it as computerized information services. So in total, we can say that once we use automated or computerized format for providing any kind of services, it is collectively called as computerized information services. So in this particular session, we will be discussing more about alerting services. As the name indicates, you are alerting the users, you are giving some kind of an announcement, or you are giving some kind of a news in which they are expected or unexpected. So that in part of library you are giving, we call it as alerting services. So let us see in detail what are the points we are going to discuss in this particular session. We will be having a general introduction about computerized information services, and we will be talking about alerting services. So we will also be talking about the features of alerting services, and there are major 3 alerting services in detail we will be discussing in this particular session, that are current awareness service, we call it as CAS, or selective dissemination of information, SDI, and electronic clipping services, ECS, and then we will conclude with the importance of computerized information services, especially alerting services, in this particular session. Dear learners, as we know that lot of activities are happening in libraries and lot of services normally library gives, it can be in a different format or different types or different levels. So all these technologies which supports for giving a services to the library, we normally call it as computerized information services. So we use normally various tools, techniques, methods, medium, etc. So that is based on your convenience, your state of availability, as well as the nature or the intellectual level of the users in which you wanted to convey. So we use different types of tools, techniques, and even the mediums also to provide large number of services. And when we talk about services, as we know that we do services in the automated scenario, we call it as library automation or integrated library system, where we used to have all the services like circulation service, reference service, maintenance service, periodical service, or the services like reports, statistics, awareness programs, sensitization programs, digital library services, institutional repository services, electronic resources. There are many services in that way we used to provide. So, but when we talk about integrated library system, it is a natural process or it is a routine process we used to conduct or we used to have in the library. But when we talk about computerized information services, especially when it comes to alerting services, it should be something new, or it should be something recent or updated, or we can call that it should be something like you are alerting the user in which something is available. So here one of the major aspects or the importance or the significance, we can say that it should be timely, as well as it should be updated, and also it should be qualitative. So time factor is very much important, and the currency or the relevancy of the information in which you have, that is also having very much significance when you go for a computerized information services, especially alerting service. So as we know that alerting service, when we talk about, we can have it in the two sides, or it can be two sides of the coin, where we talk about one is online, the other one is offline. Even in the similar way, so once you provide as like offline mode or in a printed format, that is also part of alerting service. But when we talk about alerting services in a computerized medium, that means you are providing with the assistance of computers. So the speed or the time or the accuracy, all these things should be very much different when you talk about a traditional medium, how you are dealing with alerting services in a printed format. It can be completely different from a printed format when you go for electronic resources. So in that way, we can talk about different types of alerting services, as I mean to say that the content in which you are providing as an alerting service. So it can be something about a news or a subject, or even something which is going to happen in the future. So any of this area can be given as an alerting service when you look at the computerized information services. And when we talk about such kind of services, it should be very clear, and it should be reliable, authentic, and it should be timely. So let us talk more about alerting services. So when we talk about, as I discussed in the beginning, that we will be having many of the alerting services. Say for example, search alert, it is a kind of alerting system where somebody, as we know that even if you use Amazon, Flipkart, etc., when we use something keyword for a longer time, or you use it as a repeated one, so normally after some time you will get some kind of an alert or a notification or something like that, you getting some kind of a push-up message saying that this is available, you can cross check along with this the other information also. So that means the computer sends your requirement as an information user. So even the similar way, either the system or the librarian will recognize that what is the need, or what is your significant area, or where is your specialization. So identifying that particular area and keep on updating you on that particular area, we can call it as alerting service. But only the difference is, alerting service, as the name indicates, it should be always current, up to date, or it should be alerting you that something new has come. So when we talk about computerized information system, we can broadly categorize them into two different types of computerized information services. The one is alerting services, and the other one is bibliographic and literature search services. So these two are entirely different in terms of its functionalities. We will be talking more about alerting services. There are some examples for alerting services. As I have mentioned, search alert is an example for alerting services. Current awareness services, or CAS, in which we are going to discuss more. Selective dissemination of information, SDI, that also we will discuss in detail. Electronic clipping services is again modified form of an SDI, that also we will be discussing. Apart from that, like table of contents, RSS feed, etc. So these are all parts of alerting services, which is also a main category of computerized information system. Under bibliographic or literature search services, as the name indicates, it is something which is related to literature search, or you are doing some kind of a research. In that, normally we need full text search service or reference service, referral service. So these are all part of literature. So that is also another category, we can call it as computerized information services. So now let us look into alerting services in detail. So we will be talking about major three alerting services. One is CAS, or current awareness service, selective dissemination of information, or SDI, ECS, or electronic clipping services. So what is the major functionalities, or when you talk about alerting service as a single service, so these are all different types. So but when you consider this particular entity as single, so what are the common characteristics? So there are many features which are related to alerting services. So as we know that it is something you are notifying, you are giving some kind of an announcement, creating some kind of an awareness program or sensitization program, or you are updating the user in which there is a recent updates or articles or books or whatever may be the information which are available in your particular area, which has recently published, which has recently arrived. So this is a kind of a notification, as the name indicates, it's a kind of an alerting services. You are making the particular person in which it is matching with their areas and making them alert that there is a availability of such kind of a news in your particular area of interest. And it is an effective or efficient tool to keep a particular person updated, or it can be even offline, online, or you can use hybrid methods like the amalgamation of both can be used to provide such kind of a services. Future events, book release, or something about the conferences which are going to come, or any such kind of an exhibition, book fair, or the availability of, or something which is there already in publication. So these are all the things which you can provide in advance. So there are two cases where we can divide. One is something, the service which you gives on demand. That means the user is asking something, then you are providing. That means it is based on the demand in which the user required for that particular resource. Or the other service is the service in anticipation. That means you are expecting something that users may ask something in future, or without their requirement you are assuming that they will be having some kind of a requirement in the future or the coming days. So that is why you are preparing it in well and providing them in as advanced service. The other difference is the service can be individualized or a group. That means you are providing such kind of a information to a particular individual, only a selected person you are giving, then it is an individual service. Or alerting services can be for a group also. That means you are providing such kind of an information for a group of people in which you are feeling that they have interest on this particular area. And the other thing is, either it can be current, as we have discussed that it is something which you are talking about the present one. That means it is already updated, or it is already published, or it is already, or it has already come as a news. That means you are giving this particular news as a current news which has already been published or released. But there are situations where you are talking about a forthcoming event, or maybe you can update a particular person that there is a conference in which your area, that means your interested area, I know that in this particular area, so there is a conference either at national or international level which is going to come. So I am alerting you saying that this is coming in the near future. It has not come already. It is just released the dates that this particular conference or the program will happen in a particular day. So that means you are giving something about the forthcoming news. So that is also part of alerting service. And another category is it can be either manual or computerized. Since we are talking about computerized, so there is no point in having two categories, but normally when you talk about a library scenario, it has two divisions. One you are providing in a traditional library where there is no computerized assisted services, but when you talk about assistance of a computer, so we can divide them into manual as well as computerized. Another category is general or specific. So when we talk about something, a news which is general in nature, so it is not talking about a particular subject area, so it is something general, so it normally gives a general group, or it can be a group. So there are some specific, very specific information which is giving only for a particular person or a group of people in which they are working on a similar area, so that we can call it as a specific. So category can be made in alerting service, either it can be a general or it can be a specific. The other method is who is providing such kind of alerting service. So when you talk about computerized information services also, either this particular service can be made by the library itself. That means the library staff is doing some kind of a compilation, or they are finding out the news and providing directly to the user. That is very much possible. And the other case is you are outsourcing, or you are making a third party agency for providing such kind of a news. Say for example, when you talk about publisher, so publisher have their own catalogs and their own table of contents, and as soon as they publish some kind of a literature or some kind of an articles, they can have some kind of an alerting mechanism even directly to the users. So that is also part of alerting services, but it differs from the service in which who is the provider. So these are all the different types. We can see that there are different areas or different types of medium in which, or different categories in which we can provide alerting service. Now let us look into the major categories of alerting services. The first one is current awareness service. So when we talk about current awareness service or CAS, as we know that the name indicates it is something current. That means it is something latest or new, in which the news should be having some kind of a relevancy in the present context. So always the news should be current. And when we talk about current information, so anything, say for example, when you talk about a newspaper is always having current information. So if you provide a particular newspaper, today's newspaper, you are giving after 1 week. So what is the relevancy of the content? Because everybody knows what has happened before 1 week. So there is no point in providing such kind of information saying that it is a primary resource and as well as it is a current resource. So currency, as soon as the time passes, the currency will have its own issues. So we need to provide such kind of a current information on time. And when we talk about such kind of a current awareness services, most of the services in such scenario will be generic in nature, because you don't have that much time to provide a current information, so segregate them and providing them. So something which is coming, you are directly passing to the group. That means it will be normally in a generic nature. And when we talk about current information services, it can be even a general nature, as well as the format of that particular category will be different. That means you can consult any type of material, say for example book, newspaper or electronic journals or electronic books. So whatever it may be, the types of document in which you are referring for providing such kind of a current awareness services can be different. Of course, it normally, since you are providing such kind of a services in a fast manner, it can save lot of time of staff as well as the user, because users are getting relevant information within no time, that to a particular field of study. So that will be always beneficial for them. So user experience will be high in this particular current information services. So it is always keeping the users about up-to-dateness or something which is new in their particular area of interest. So we can call it as an announcement mechanism. You are giving some kind of an announcement or notification or some kind of up-to-date in that particular area of research. So since you are giving some kind of a general information, it normally not pertaining to a particular person, it will be always a group of people. So here the problem is, as we have seen, that you are providing someone in which whether they are asking it or not. So you are providing such kind of service as a voluntary service. So here there is no mechanism that you can receive some kind of a feedback. Maybe they can ask individually or they can give some kind of a feedback individually, but when we talk about computerized information services, there is no mechanism of getting a feedback in real sense for a current awareness service. So there are different types of current awareness services we do normally provide in the libraries. Say for example, table of contents of a particular journal. As soon as you receive a particular journal, you can just scan it and send it via different mediums, so that the people will on that particular area of interest will get to know that whether any particular article which is published recently is on or her own interest. And apart from that, conference alerts, program alerts, lecture alerts, compilation of bibliographies, as well as recent arrivals. Suppose you buy some books or the documents, or you are acquiring something new to the library. So once it has been completed its processing, immediately you can send an email or any other medium of communication saying that this particular resource has been added to library, so maybe you can come and look into that particular resource. So it is also a current awareness service that users are getting, but it is not specifically for a single person. You are giving it for a target group. Apart from this, you can give some kind of a information about employment news and even the opportunities, rewards, awards. So all this information can be provided to the users, which are all part of current awareness services. And what are the factors to be considered when you are providing current awareness services? So the first one is, you need to see whether that particular user is in need of this particular resource or not. User requirement to be a factor to be considered. The other one is the type of the literature in which and what kind of documents you are going to refer for providing such kind of a services, especially current awareness services. And also the documents in which, suppose you are providing some kind of a services, what are the details to be included in a current awareness services. So you cannot make a long compilation of current awareness services because it takes time. By the time the relevancy will come down. So you need to do it in a faster mode. So in that, what are the mandatory fields or the fields in which you feel that very significant for users has to be included, either title, author's details, keywords, sometimes abstract, etc. So these are all need to be considered. And apart from that, the looking, I mean the fonts, visualization presentation, graphical representation, and the totality of this particular document in which you are providing. So the attractiveness of that particular document is also very much important. And of course you can use different types of methods, as we have discussed, like you can use any of the medium which are computer assisted, like email, opaque or online public access catalog, or you can put into your library website, or you can create a separate blog for that, or any of such kind of a medium, including mobile services and social networking sites, can be used for providing such kind of a current information services. Only thing is, it should be passed on to the users without any delay. And as we have seen that it can be either performed by a library or it can be outsourced to a third party agent. So let us look into the next service, that is SDI, or Selective Dissemination of Information. Here, as the name indicates, it is very selective. That means you are selecting such kind of a information only for a selective group. That means the information in which you are going to select is very much specific, as well as the information in which you are going to provide someone is very specific. So we can say that it is something like you are providing a service to the individual, that to a very specific. So the depthness of that particular information, we can imagine that it is not in a general manner. So this particular terminology has first conceived by H.P. Loon, Hans Peter Loon, in the year of 1958. As we know that it is a computer assisted personalized services in which you are providing to a specific group, that to a current information. Hence, currency of the information is very important even in the selective dissemination services also. So it can be normally given to a group of people, those who are having a similar interest, or even it can be for a selective persons. That means it can be an individual person also. Sometimes if there are many individuals working on the same area of interest, so then also SDI will work. So this is kind of a process which are worked in information and retrieval services. You are doing some kind of a filtration in which is matching to the user requirements. So to perform such kind of an activities, so you always need some kind of an idea about what this particular user is looking for. That means you need something more about that particular user, his details, his background, his area of studies or area of interest, research area. So these are all should be having a kind of an idea in your mind, then only you can match with the documents in which he requires. That means the details in which a particular person's area of interest also very much required in this case. So as similar to current awareness services, here also as we have discussed that SDA also kind of an alerting services, it requires something which you need to know about the user as well as the document. And where there is a matching between the requirement of a particular user and the document, then only we can say that this particular document will be fit for that particular user. That means you are very selective in choosing the resources which are available in this one area, and whereas it is matching with the user's demand or the requirement. So it allows the users to get pinpointed or exhaustive information in which he or she is looking for. So it is a kind of a completely personalized service rather than a general service in which a particular person is getting his own her interest area of research. So there are different ways for delivering selective dissemination of information. You can use either online or offline. Since we are talking about computerized information system, so it can be provided with the assistance of computers only. So there should be a matching mechanism. The computer says that it is matching, so then only it will be provided. But it can be provided through email or any other kind of a communication medium in which a user is comfortable, or a library staff can do that. So in this particular scenario, as we know that it is a kind of an alerting service, we are providing for a special group or a special individual, very focused, very exhaustive, current, and also it should be having some kind of a relevancy. That means the relevancy rate of this particular document will be high when you compare to CAS, because you are very selective in the choosing of a particular information, since you have all the details of a particular person's area of interest. So for matching the details with the user as well as the document, you can use code numbers, or you can use some kind of a keywords or area of interest. So that is up to the librarian, in which where you will be able to fine tune, where you will be able to filter more to get the resources which is matching with the user's requirement. As we know that it is a time saving process, as well as unlike current awareness services, selective dissemination of information is very much exhaustive and pinpointed and specific, so that we can say that once all this done, you can even get a kind of a feedback from the users. So SDI is always having a mechanism of getting output from the users also, and then he will evaluate and say some kind of a corrections or modification that can be incorporated in the further activities, so that you every time when you do such kind of activities, you always have a chance of having a peer review. That means you are always evaluating the efficiency of the system in which you are following, so that way you can improve the system and you can provide more fine-tuned selective dissemination of information. Here you can see all the components which are part of selective dissemination of information: user profile, document profile, and there will be a supporting software and hardware, and there will be a matching mechanism. You can use the keywords, etc. And once it is matched, there should be a notification. So once the notification has went to the user will check the significance of the resources. If it is partially or fully, if it is not matching with his queries or anything he wanted to comment, so he will be making a feedback mechanism. So this is the normal cycle which happens in the selective dissemination of information. So creating a user profile is the first step, where you need to be more creative, saying that what is the keyword, what is the area of interest of a particular user. So you have to list out all the keywords which are related to that particular person's area of interest. And the second one is creating a database or a document profile. That means you are creating a profile in which is very much related to a document or a database. So further you need to filter the services. So once the filtration is completed, that means you got a document and you have a profile of the user. Once the computer sends that, okay, this is matching with the query. So you have the keywords, you have the profile. So once you do the matching, if it is matching, then you can decide that it has to forward to the user. So once you feel that it is matching, then the notification has to go to the user. Once the user get that, then he will make the comment or he will make a feedback mechanism. So this is the whole cycle of selective dissemination of information. So the next one is electronic clipping services. So it is a rare name. When we used to talk about electronic clipping services, we can say that it is a alerting services, as well as it is a kind of an advanced form of selective dissemination of information, in which you are automatically getting, without much effort, you are automatically getting the alert from the system in which already available with the publishers, or any kind of services in which as a library you have started. Here the human intervention is comparatively lesser than the selective dissemination of information. There are many such kind of mechanism where you can provide automatic alerting services like RSS aggregators, in which you have to have RSS aggregator platform where it will be downloaded as an XML file, in which it will be having an URL. So once you pasted that URL in the specified area in which they are specified, so once you have activated that, whenever there is a news come which is related to that particular website or area, so it will be automatically connected to you. That means electronic clipping service is an advanced form of SDI, where you will be automatically directed to the news or the forthcoming events or anything which is part of current awareness service or selective dissemination of information is coming to you without much effort from the library side. So dear learners, let me conclude here. So as we know that the role of libraries and the librarians or the library staff has been considerably changed with the advancement of information and communication technologies. Though you provide many services, we have all the different options and the advancement in providing the services like selective dissemination of information, current awareness services, electronic clipping services. So these are all the services which are available earlier also, but only the difference is which were working in the manual medium where there was no computer assisted mechanism. Here you have all the options to support your services using computer assisted technologies. So what we need to do here is you need to have a careful study about the documents available, resources available, or something which is going to come in the near future. So librarian should be always alert in that way, making a sense of such kind of resources in which how do we update the user in which they are on interested area. So with this particular services, we can always make a difference in the experience of users, so that the library will be recognized, your effort will be recognized, as well as users will be giving some kind of a feedback mechanism, so that you will be able to make much more effort in that, so that your services will be fine tuned, or that will be recognized in a higher manner. So with this, dear learners, I hope that you have learned much about current awareness services. What are the components, how do we perform that, selective dissemination of information, what are the components and the features and characteristics, and what is the requirement for providing selective dissemination of information, and also the electronic clipping services, which is a kind of advanced form of SDI, in which what are the sources in which you are able to provide such kind of services. With this, I hope that you will be able to make such kind of services in your library very effectively and efficiently. Thank you.